when you're connected with someone on LinkedIn for the first 2 weeks, the algorithm will show new connection content more prominently for 2 weeks. So if you're consistently adding new connections from your target market and you're posting regularly 3 to 7 times a week, like your content will get in front of them regularly. So I like the mutual connectedness of them accepting and then getting them into your ecosystem where you can post content and show up in their feed. And then if and when they engage, then you can follow up via message. I think there's more options in that channel versus cold email.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fully Managed Podcast, the podcast where we discuss marketing and business tips to help assist you on your business journey. I'm your host, Shannon, Penji's partnership coordinator, and I'm joined here today with a very special guest, Todd Giannattasio from Tresnick Media. Thank you so much for coming on with me today.
Thank you very much, Shannon. Appreciate it. I'm grateful to be here.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate the help with your last name, and I got it right, so this is a good day. Could you just start by telling us a little bit about yourself, how you kind of work yourself up to this point, and kind of what you're doing right now?
Yeah, for sure. So for me, my first online brand actually started while I was drunk cooking meatloaf with my roommates.
Awesome. I didn't expect that at all. That's awesome.
Yeah. So back in 2009, which you may be too young to remember, you look pretty young, but
It was 9.
before, oh man. This was before iPhones had cameras on them. There was no Instagram or TikTok. There was no video on Facebook. YouTube was just like on the come up. And I got a flip camera for Christmas from my parents, which is this little guy for those who are Shannon's generation. And it was a flip camera because a little USB flips out of the side. And it was like the first pocket camera, like before GoPros and all that. And like, I'm like a tech geek, so it was like super exciting and cool that I got that. And then after like the 10 minutes of excitement, I was like, okay, cool, but like now what? Because I don't want to be like an actor or director or anything like that. And like I said, like there wasn't like online video content like the way it is today. But I was in my mid-20s and my roommates and I every day would just like go out for fast food or takeout or eat at the bars. And we just were spending a ton of money on that, like, bachelor life, and didn't know how to cook, and we were very unhealthy. And so we wanted to learn how to cook. And I figured, hey, we got this camera. Why don't we just kind of like goof off and like learn how to cook, and we'll record videos of it. And so once a week, we would pick up the finest $11 bottle of whiskey that Bottle King had to offer us. And we would like pick something to figure out how to make it. And we'd just kind of like look at a bunch of different recipes, and we would just record each other making meatloaf or fried chicken or chicken parm or whatever, like a whole bunch of different stuff. And being a geek, I just kind of like whipped them up. I'd put them in iMovie and just trim them down as short as possible and put them up on YouTube. And like I whipped up a website. And after a couple weeks, I get an email notification from YouTube that's like, so-and-so commented on your video. And it was like, oh, you guys are hilarious and this recipe came out great. Can't wait for the next one. And I was like, why would someone try our recipe? This is the dumbest thing ever, right? Like, this is crazy. And then like I looked at the stats and we had like thousands of views on the video. And I was like, whoa, this is like kind of funky. And then what happened was we actually ended up at the top of Google for like easy recipe for meatloaf, easy recipe for chicken parm. Eventually, like after a couple of months, we were at like, if you just Googled easy recipes, we were #1, like above like foodnetwork.com and like other stuff like that. And while that was just kind of like a drunken side project, what it taught me was like the power of helpful and humanized content that's like optimized for being online. And so what we had kind of stumbled upon was like rich media, which was creating videos that were short and helpful for a specific kind of audience, which we just happened to be. There wasn't any kind of like audience research at the time behind it. We were making it for ourselves. Like we had a problem that we didn't know how to cook the most basic of things. And we learned how to do it and we shared it. And I took those videos and I put them on blog posts, and that just like helped us get onto Google, and like people would find them. It was useful for them and they would share it with their friends. And then like we ended up with like 2 little niche pockets of like young people like similar to us, and then like actually like mid-50s like divorcees who never had to cook before, and like they were sharing our stuff. And so like we created this whole like flywheel of like creating helpful humanized content, optimizing it just naturally, because like I just called it. This is where, like, when you talk about marketing being clear over clever, like the headline was like easy recipe for meatloaf, right? Like it wasn't like, like you'll never believe how this meatloaf is, just like straight up like easy recipe for meatloaf, right?
Someone would look that up. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And like it was easy to understand, easy for people to share. It was helpful. And so that was kind of like how I learned the current like methodology that I teach and train entrepreneurs and small business owners on, which is that helpful humanized content. So that's kind of how it all came to be initially. Yeah.
That is the most incredible background story I think I've heard to date. That's really
Great. I'll take that.
Yeah, that's really awesome. No, I mean, like, it's also really nice to hear when people learn things by having fun, because you don't get to hear that a lot. Like, a lot of people be like, the nitty gritty, like, it took so much, and like, it, of course, getting up to this point, I'm sure that there was a lot of hard work involved. But
yeah.
From accidentally learning something really valuable from the get-go is really, really cool, especially when you get to do it with your friends.
Yeah, exactly. And unfortunately, I was like still working a cubicle job. I've always been in digital communications and building websites and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of where like putting the website together came more easily for me versus it would have for someone else at the time. But my roommate, I was in a cubicle job. We didn't know anything about list building or monetizing an audience, and he was my cameraman, and he like quit his job and moved back to New York. And so I lost my cameraman, the project kind of died off, but like, I got a lot of valuable lessons from it, and I use it today, and it's a fun story to share with people that like, when you could tell fun stories that have like a lesson, like kind of like Aesop's fables almost, right? Like it helps people like remember. So hopefully more people who heard this will remember like, oh, it's easy to create helpful humanized content and have fun, and that will attract people.
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of people focus on the monetary aspect of it, like what can I make that will make money, and if they're focusing on content related things. And I think that sometimes that just gets in the way of just making something simple and useful that will likely make you money by accident, if you're just having fun doing something.
Yeah.
That's even with any kind of media for me, if I watch it and I'm like, this person had fun making this, it makes me like it so much more.
Yeah.
Even with
Absolutely.
songs, like if I can laugh at a song, I'm like, oh, these people had a great time making this song. That it's like it's that much more enjoyable.
And that there's actually like, quantum physics and spirituality kind of like tied together into this too. Like, not to go off the rails too far, but when you put that, like when you're creating something that you put an energy and frequency into it, that does come across to the audience. And so like that's also why helpful humanized content will stand apart from AI, 100% AI content any day of the week. Like AI is a great tool, but you can't use that for everything. You need to have there has to be like some kind of energetics in what you do.
Yeah, I like using AI. I actually just started using ChatGPT in the last 2 weeks because I was so intimidated by it. Oh yeah, no, it was just I get so in my head about not being able to think for myself after, I even if I know that I know the answer to something that's in the back of my head, I won't Google it because I try my hardest to remember it. So I'm like, I'm afraid that I'm gonna get like early onset Alzheimer's if I'm not thinking through these things. But I was so intimidated by ChatGPT because I was like, if I'm reliant on this tool, I will never be able to do that again. Like I will not be able to fine tune those synapses that are
Right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I love that. That's super smart.
But it's a very helpful tool for the very painstakingly torturous tasks. Like a lot of our videos, we have to create like just 3 points. And in the beginning, I was doing these. I was watching the video, and I film a lot of these. So I was watching the video and finding 3 points because I couldn't remember them off the bat. And my boss was like, "Why are you doing that? That's taking so much time. Just put the transcript in ChatGPT and find 3 points." And I was like, "Gosh,
Exactly.
it changed my life." And it is, but it's not something that can replace a person. I think people are really worried about that. I of course, there are certain jobs that it is coming up to maybe replacing, but also there's so much need for humans. I think that'll always be a thing, and I think that the worry of, I've never been worried that it will replace me.
Yeah.
I'm more worried
Look,
that
when carpenters switched from screwdrivers to power drills, we still needed carpenters.
no, that's it. That's a great analogy, actually.
So that's how I look at it.
Oh, are the YouTube videos still up there today? I'm so curious.
Yes.
I will be watching that.
Yeah. EasyGuyCooking.com. It's still up and live.
EasyGuyCooking.com.
Yeah. And you know what? If you are watching this interview right now and you can see me and think like I'm very comfortable on camera and like everything like looks good, like this will show you got to start somewhere, right? Like I was like clunky and awkward. I also weighed like 60 more pounds than I weigh right now. And like, we were in like an ugly apartment kitchen. Like you just got to start,
So, what would your so with your unique experience, what would your advice be to someone who's trying to like get to your stature in the marketing world? Like, do you think it would just be like have fun with it?
Yeah, well, totally having fun is like, if you're not having fun, why do it, right? But so if you actually if we carry this story and lessons forward, I left my corporate job in 2011 to start Tresnick Media, which is my content marketing agency. And it was fine. I was like doing a lot of local networking at like the breakfast meeting groups and like these like one-on-one things that you kind of are forced to do, and you kind of force referrals to other people, and they're never good fits, but it kind of pays the bills and all that kind of stuff, and it was fine. And so I had money coming in, and I was basically like a local freelancer building websites and some like minor marketing stuff. And Hurricane Sandy came and wiped out the tri-state area, so all my clients were wiped out for months, and I had no work to do. So that's when I like drank my own Kool-Aid, the stuff that I was like preaching and telling people, but I hadn't been doing myself, which a lot of marketers, cobblers, kids have no shoes. A lot of marketers are in that same boat. And so when all I had was time, I basically sat down and I made a list of like all the questions that I would get at those breakfast meetings from other small business owners who like were trying to figure it out. And went through my inbox to all the questions people would email me. I would just look up like common frequently asked questions. I just made a list of them. And over the course of 5 weeks, I wrote and published 2 blog posts every single day. So I did 50 articles in 25 days. And after I published each article, I would go out onto social media. And at that time, it was like primarily like Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. And I would find people who were posting questions about the topic I just published an article about, and I would just answer their questions. I would just reply and answer their questions. And then if you tap over to my profile, then you'd see that my most recent post was a link back to that newest article. So that started driving some traffic, building my connections again, just by like going out and being helpful, sharing my insights with people, answering questions. And over the course of the first 8 weeks from when I started, I went from essentially like no website visitors at all to like 8,000 visits a week, and people finding me from, going from struggling local referrals at these breakfast meetings to now all of a sudden people are finding me all over the country because they're Googling like social media agency, how to hire a social media agency, like all different phrases around that. Or they're looking up like, how do I build my Facebook page audience and I had created content that answered all those questions on the blog. And so that drove a lot of traffic. Because I was sharing it, I was sharing helpful stuff on social, I was building connections, and then people were resharing the stuff I was posting. And then word kind of got out. Every Friday, I would do an analytics recap of what happened that week. And so that started turning into case studies. And then like NYU Business School reached out, Rutgers Business School, Seton Hall. Like I started lecturing at these business schools to the students about like how to do all this stuff. And then I was quoted in Forbes and featured in Entrepreneur and all these other cool places. And I've, spoken at events with Gary Vaynerchuk and Ariana Huffington. And so like to go from that like local freelancer struggling for referrals and no one knew who I was to now all this, and it all came from that same lesson from the drunk cooking videos was like, and you said it perfectly, like being useful, right? Like I just got loud with being helpful, right? I'm very much like helpful over hypey, and getting out and how can you help the people that you want to serve and become known in that area, put goodwill and trust and equity into the relationships there with your target audience, and that's naturally going to attract stuff to you.
I really like a come up story that is involved in being helpful. I think that a lot of people will look for a specific area that is untapped, and I think that that's not smart. But sometimes if you're not passionate about it, then
Yeah.
maybe it's not going to be the best fit for you.
Yeah.
I always think of, do you know the show Kitchen Nightmares with Gordon Ramsay?
I mean, I'm familiar with it. I don't watch it regularly though.
Oh, okay. It's basically he goes to restaurants and they're nightmares and he fixes them. And
So great name. The title.
he just like kind of yells at them and he fixes them up, and it's very great Gordon Ramsay content. But I always think about this, I guess, as an analogy of like, this woman is Irish. She is not Italian, and she opens an Italian restaurant in her city, town, I don't know,
Whatever.
because there is no Italian restaurants. And she thinks that this is a great idea, but she has no idea how to cook Italian food. They're microwaving all their food, all of it's frozen, and they're putting it in microwaves. And I'm like,
As an Italian, I'm very offended.
yeah, that's messed up, right? And I think about this in so many aspects of work where I'm like, if you open something or you start a business that you are unfamiliar with how to do something and you're not passionate about it, it's not going to work out.
Yeah, totally.
You want to be able to not only have fun with it, but also you want to be helpful. And it's not helpful to open an Italian restaurant and not know anything about Italian.
Microwaving Chef Boyardee for people.
It's You can be inexperienced in something, but the drive is to be helpful, and you can learn and grow through that path. But if you're not being helpful and you're also not passionate about it, you are never going to go anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and that's a great point too, where like, a lot of people, when I meet them, will ask me like, oh, well, what industry are you in, or what niche do you serve? And for me, it's industry agnostic. It's about people who are passionate experts in their craft, right? So it doesn't matter if you're a restaurateur or in real estate or banking, biotech. Like, we have performance coaches. Like I've worked with hundreds of clients, and there's no one category of business. It's really about like, are you experienced and an expert in what you do, so you can naturally give helpful advice, and like, are you passionate about it so that when you talk about it, you're energized and you're not just like, right?
Working with all these different people, do you think it's difficult to adapt to each person, like in each field that you talk to? Or do you think that it's like kind of okay, like I can kind of give, yeah, like how do you cater your advice to each person? Because that sounds kind of difficult. I know like a lot of marketing agencies are like niching down, and that's a big topic in marketing.
Well, that's like what's great about having like kind of like a framework structure and methodology. So like we use that helpful humanized approach, right? And so I'm not necessarily coaching you on like, here's how you talk about biotech stuff. It's like, no, you know how to talk about biotech stuff, right? So I'm like, here's our mentality and philosophy of how do we think about what should be said. And then I kind of, it's a very collaborative approach where I'm like coaching and consulting them on like, okay, you have it all in your head. Let me just help you extract it a little bit. And so we use this like 4-part process. It's strategize, digitize, optimize, amplify. And so strategize is like, okay, let's sit down and think about what is it that our main offer is, our product or service, and then who's our ideal client, and what does the kind of customer journey look like for them? Like, what are they thinking about when they're complete status quo? They don't even know they have a problem. When they become problem aware, solution aware, et cetera. And like, how do we build a relationship with them over that same course of time? So like laying over top their journey, it's like, how do we go from cold to warm to hot audiences that are strangers to like love us, and a few different other tracks on that. And we just kind of like, it's stuff that every business owner pretty much knows after they've been around for a couple of years. And it's just getting it out of their head. So that's where we like, okay, here's the game plan. All right, now let's digitize your genius, right? So like understand like what needs to be said at different stages of this customer journey, what people are searching for, what's popular on social, whatever, do that research. And then it's just, okay, now let's digitize your genius. And so here's the topics, and then getting them comfortable just talking about those things, right? And like having fun and demonstrating like their expertise, but also their passion for it, and being helpful and useful for their audience at the different stages, right? And then optimizing it. So if it's going on your blog, we're optimizing it for search. If it's going on social, the different social platforms contextualize differently. And then amplifying it. So we're getting it out, publishing, promoting, potentially running ads behind it. But really, it's like the crux of it all is like, okay, what is it that you sell? Who do you sell it to? And what do they need to know? What questions are they asking? And then like now brain dump that out of your head and digitize it into these assets, right? Because one of the exercises, and this is, I have a free 5-minute training that walks people through this. If they want to, we can give it later. But the gist is like, if a client or prospect called you right now or emailed you right now and asked you a question, you off the cuff would respond to them on the phone in 2 minutes, giving them a great insightful answer that's super helpful. Or you'd hit reply and you would answer their question with no problem. The problem with this is that one person got your answer, but everyone in the market is asking themselves that same question. And so if instead of hitting reply and sending it to one client, or instead of going on Zoom with your one client, you hit record, now you have this content asset that you can put out to the world. And so, yeah, send it to your one client as a reply. And then literally you can a getting started exercise is like literally copy and paste it and post that onto your social platforms, onto your blog if it's long enough. Send it out to your email list. Like that is exactly what we do for getting started. It's like, it's not more complicated than just like, how do we take your one-on-one conversations and create digital leverage by putting that into something that can reach more people? Because you've already done the hard work of like becoming the expert that can give helpful advice off the cuff. And you're even doing the hard work of like giving someone that advice digitally on Zoom or on the phone or in text messages or via email. You're limiting your potential by just having it in these private channels. Like, okay, take that same thing and turn it into an asset that can reach more people and amplify across the internet,
That's really smart. And it's like not a lot translated. It's not a lot of work because you're already answering it for the person.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's kind of genius. Because I guess like when someone is just giving that out to one person, they're not thinking about it as substantial, probably. Right. So like they're not in that headspace of translating it to something that could be more valuable to them.
Right. Exactly.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, now I got good advice. That's my favorite thing about the podcast is getting to learn. So
that's right.
All right. So we're gonna take a little break and play a game. Let's do it. Also fun. Okay, we're getting out of the marketing brain head so that you have to refocus. It's really fun. Okay. First, I'll ask you a bizarre one. Okay. How many eggs do you think that you can eat in a waking day? You can eat them any style. You just have to eat them.
I mean, I feel like 24 is probably pretty realistic. Is that not a lot?
That's I've had people tell me like 8 dozen eggs. I ask a lot of men this question because I think they're way more overzealous with how many eggs they think they can eat.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Sometimes, you see these things on like on Instagram that float around and it's like a huge pizza and it's like tag a friend who you like eat this with. If you had to eat this in a half hour and like half the stuff. I mean, look, I started Easy Guy Cooking because I was a amateur competitive eater. And it's like, so I'll see some of those things and I'm like, I mean, I wouldn't need anyone to help me and a half hour is way too long, So I'm like, I don't know. Eggs are like, eggs is tough. I've eaten 80 chicken nuggets in 10 minutes. I can tell you that. Yeah.
80?
Yeah. Which is actually not, I forget what the record is, but it's not actually, that wasn't even close to the record. Because I was like really, before I learned how to. Yeah, I forget off the this because this was like, this was in 2009. Yeah, but I told you I was the eater. I mean, I still am, but yeah.
80 chicken nuggets. I don't think I could eat 80 chicken nuggets. Like if you gave me like the longest amount of time.
No, this is the thing, and this is I don't know the answer for eggs, but for chicken, I do know the answer. I could eat an infinite amount of chicken nuggets. It's just a matter of the time period. Like if you just were handing me chicken nuggets all day, like I could just eat chicken nuggets all day long.
That's crazy. I always think about how much your body can take. Like not even just like your stomach.
Sure, it's something. Yeah.
Your body will be like, that's too much protein.
Right.
I think you're gonna die, and then like shut down.
Yes. So like the 10-minute record was like that was more of a time constraint than anything.
Yeah, I'm also worried about heart attacks, like cholesterol with eggs. Yeah, that's maybe something to be worried about. I don't know. Okay, that's insane. Anyway, that's a good chicken nugget fact. Okay, we'll ask something more on par. Okay.
All right. How would you market an egg contest?
How would you market? That's actually, Yep, you know what? You created a great question for me. How would you market an egg contest?
How would I market an egg contest? I mean, there's got to be some kind of prize and some kind of challenge, like, probably pose it to, like you said, there's a lot of ambitious people who think they could eat, so I think you would really go out and you'd want to get in front of the egg eating community, right? So you'd find some like egg Instagram and TikTok accounts that got some good followers, right?
They exist. They have to exist.
Yeah.
You have Eggland's best.
Yeah, influencers. We would have to find
Eggfluencers. Those are probably awesome. I love eggs. The egg question sprouted from a video about this woman talking about her ex-boyfriend and how he lost his fantasy football league, and his punishment was eating his age in eggs.
Oh,
and he was only like in his mid-20s, and it was for the next year, it was the same punishment, and he dreaded it. He's so worried about losing it.
And it only gets worse every year.
And I'm gonna say, like, it's gotta be bad to eat 25 eggs if he's, like, sweating over this punishment. It doesn't sound that bad, but it's in one day. That sounds, like, doable.
Yeah. That's like, but if it's only in one day and it's a challenge, then, like, I know that, like, all right, well, I'm gonna need a recovery day that I can, like, plan for.
Yes.
It's not like I'm not eating 24 eggs every day.
Mm-hmm. I can just imagine you feeling, like, stiff. Very stiff at the end of the day, like a solid hard-boiled egg person. Right? That's what I'm imagining. Okay. Better on par question now. We're going back on topic.
Yeah.
Okay. LinkedIn or email outreach? What do you think is the best?
I have to flip this on you because the best for what and by who, right? So it really, that matters. So so your question,
maybe for you personally in your line of work,
what am I trying to accomplish? Like, are you trying to reach new people? Are you trying to sell something?
New people.
Right? So like new people connecting with LinkedIn.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why?
Because it's a mutual connection that they can accept. That's kind of like one of the benefits over like an Instagram or TikTok also, where like you're basically saying like, hey, I want you in my network, and then once we're connected. And quick good fact for the listeners is that when you're connected with someone on LinkedIn for the first 2 weeks, the algorithm, as of right now on the most recent report I saw, the algorithm will show new connection content more prominently for 2 weeks. So if you're consistently adding new connections from your target market and you're posting regularly 3 to 7 times a week, like your content will get in front of them regularly. So I like the mutual connectedness of them accepting and then getting them into your ecosystem where you can post content and show up in their feed. And then if and when they engage, then you can follow up via message. I think there's more options in that channel versus cold email.
That is extremely helpful and nice to know because I might actually use that. I have come around to
it. And if you're in B2B also, I should caveat that, like, the US for me, for B2B services, that's what I'm on.
Yeah, of course. No, I don't do as much LinkedIn outreach because I think it's kind of something that intimidates me, which it shouldn't, but I think I'm just new to it because I'm younger and I hadn't.
You're the host of the Fully Managed Cats. Everyone should want to be connected with you. It's an great. She's had a finishing reswept from me. Go away.
Yeah, I need to post more. We have content on our YouTube, and I've been practicing posting more reels on my LinkedIn and commenting on it. I know I need more engagement on that side. I just reached 500 LinkedIn connections yesterday. I was so happy.
That's a milestone. I'm happy to be one of those 500.
Thank you. Yes, you were definitely contributed to that, so I appreciate that. You're like the last 10 of the 500. Maybe I should give you a prize. Don't worry. I'll think about it. I'll think on that. But you're gonna get a prize. Okay. Okay. This might be more complicated because I don't know. For Tresnick Media, do you have more staff, or is it just you solely doing this all yourself?
I don't want to scare away young marketers with my answer to this.
Oh no.
But I have gone from 5 team members to 0 team members using AI and automation.
That's fine. I don't think that's scary. I mean, that's fine. Well, okay, then maybe this won't make sense, but well, you've had team members in the past, so maybe this is still an okay question.
Yep.
So if you could pick one in this scenario, you had to pick one.
Yep.
Would you rather make a client happy or your staff happy?
Staff.
Okay, cool.
I don't think twice about that.
I agree.
Staff over everybody, yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that if you have a good staff and you trust them, then in a scenario where there's only one option for that, it's clearly probably the client that might be trouble.
Yeah, I've fired several clients over the years due to them either disrespecting staff members or even like we just had a client where like, look, when you're in marketing, when you're in anything, like you're gonna have some nightmare clients. And I had literally had like one of my team members was literally having nightmares about it.
Oh my God.
And they weren't like, I mean, it was just like, it just didn't work out. Like it wasn't working out, but they weren't like super, like they didn't do anything super terrible at the time. But when she told me that, I was like, we're firing them today. Like I can't, like, I know like it's been annoying, but if you're literally having nightmares about this, like that's not the place. Like this is not, that's not the kind of place that I want to run. So
yeah, no, that's very kind.
Yeah, I don't think, the people that are on your team are going to matter way more than the clients, because that is like when you're in the service business, you're in the people business, and that is your company.
Yeah, and I think sometimes like clients can just not be a good fit. It might not be that they're blatantly disrespectful, which also happens, of course. It's horrible. Yeah. But yeah, sometimes it's just not a great fit for the general vibe of the agency. I know that some agencies only do funny content, and you got like a stick in the mud.
And that's also, and that's also about like going back to like the niching topic is like when you understand your own values and principles, number one, as the business owner, to set that vision and values and principles for the culture and for your business, you can make that your niche. Like for us, it's helpful humanized content. So like, we're not going to work with a client who doesn't want to be making videos where he's giving advice.
It's like,
right? Or like, well, like we had, we were working with someone who she was like really struggling. I forget, this was years ago. But like it was just like super painful for her to be like writing out like a simple email that for something that needed to be done. And like, now I'm like, okay, now, but that's also as a business owner, you learn these things as you get clients and you're like, okay, I need to recognize that behavior because that's not a fit here anymore, right? Like you said, there's certain people who like, the Harmon brothers are like a famous like funny video ad company. And it's like, you're not going to work with the Harmon brothers if you want to do like, dry advertorials in Golf Magazine or something, right? Like you're going to work with them to make hilarious, like, Squatty Potty commercials, right? Like that's what they do. So I think that when you come from like, there's two kinds of niches. There's like industry versus like values and personality and approach. So.
No, I definitely agree. I think it's very important to know what you want your clientele to be, because I think that a lot of people, of course, when you're earlier on in your startup, a lot of times you have to say yes to everyone. Absolutely. And that makes sense. But of course, I think that people shouldn't always be afraid to have to drop a client because it's not a good fit. I think that is way more beneficial to the agency to be able to know when you have to say no.
And honestly, the same thing goes for team. Like when you have that vision and values set and I also think this is a great part of having helpful humanized content marketing for your brand, is that then when you're recruiting people, they can see your personality and they understand, number one, like you're saying, like this is our approach to doing business. And so like if people don't jive with that, then they're not going to want to work there. And then if they, if you get people on your team who are kind of toxic or just not a good fit, like, if they're toxic and bad, like you have to fire them. But like if they're just not a good fit, but they're a good person, like just have that transparent conversation and help them move on to the next thing, because it's not going to help you or your team, or your clients.
Yeah, it's also really nice to have partners and friends in that scenario where you can be like, hey,
exactly,
I appreciate you and your work. Maybe we're not a good fit, but I have this person for you, And I really like that as well. So it's just a good relationship to have with people, because you don't want to seem like you don't like them kind of thing.
Yeah. And I'll give another good tip on recruiting. So like if you do follow this kind of like helpful humanized content approach, or if you're just putting out very good personality based or subject matter expertise based content, when you're recruiting and you have people applying, in your applicant follow-ups pre-interview, send them podcast episodes that you've been on, or if you have a podcast, because then you can say like, hey, looking forward to our interview on Thursday. Here's an interview that, you know, the owner did on some podcasts. You can get an understanding for like his story and personality, if it's the kind of place you want to work at, and like here's a few of our, like, you know, Instagram reels that we made, so you can get a feel for the vibe. And so then they know, like, you know, kind of culturally, this is the kind of thing that's happening. And so you can actually use your content in the recruiting phase to like build a stronger culture when you're interviewing people also.
Yeah, that is really helpful. I definitely try to send my videos over as much as possible to people that I'm outreaching to. I think that what is troublesome right now is all of the videos that are on my YouTube right now are the earlier ones, and I'm like, I do so much better. I wish you could see them, but they're not done yet. Especially the quality is a lot better. StreamYard is a wonderful service that is really helpful with the sound quality and the video quality, of course. But you know, you live and you learn, and it is also nice because they'll be able to see their video and be like, wow, this is even better than what I thought it was going to be, and that's really nice. So it is helpful, and making content is all about comfortability too, and I think that people have to adapt to it. I'm not like someone that's ever liked to be on video. I don't have a similar startup.
No, you're doing great.
Thank you. I like talking, and if this was just an audio podcast, I think I'd be so much happier about it. But it's okay, and you know, I have to gesture less. I do realize this is like the...
No, that's actually really good. I'm an Italian from New Jersey, so I'm gesturing all the time. But I actually heard something yesterday that, what's her name? Vanessa Edwards is like she has 2 books. One is called Cues, one is called Charisma, I think. And she's like the science of people and communication. And they analyze like every TED Talk ever. And the top TED Talks, the most viral TED Talks, had the most, maybe not the most, but like they all had like a huge amount of hand gesturing.
Interesting.
So your TED Talk will go viral when you get there.
I also grew up around New Jersey Italians. We thought we were Italian actually up until 2 years ago when I took a 23andMe and found out we're not even a lick of Italian, which is
surprising.
A bummer.
Sorry to hear that.
It's okay. You know, it's really funny to have grown up with a stereotype in your family of how Italian should be, and then find out that we're not even Italian, which is very, very funny and kind of offensive maybe, but... Well, anyway, I have to cut this short because we're already over time, but this was absolutely so incredible. Thank you
for a blast. I hope it was fun for the people to watch, because I had a great time hanging out with you.
I hope so. Yes, this is very fun, and I love when my conversations are just fluid and conversational. This has been very incredible, and I love laughing on the podcast.
Yeah,
that's my favorite. Thank you. And a great come-up story, so thank you so much for sharing that with us, because I'm sure
hopefully it helps some people watching.
Yeah, I hope that people are able to have more fun in the marketing space, because I feel like some people do not, and that's not fun, and that's not, you know. So thank you so much, and thank you everyone for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to see more fun stories like this, hopefully in the future.